Hello everyone and welcome to my The Young and the Restless official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Young and the Restless spoilers hint that Nick Newman could be headed back to the slammer. Since it's clear that Nick wants to end Matt Clark's life, he could pay the price for that once this storyline reaches its climax. Once Nick found out Matt had been released, he flew into a rage. It left Nick frustrated since he previously wanted to kill Matt and was stopped by Victor Newman, Sharon Newman, Noah Newman, and Sienna Bacall. Victor and the others talked Nick out of causing Matt's grim fate that night. That's something Victor isn't sorry about since Nick could have landed behind bars. Victor recently reminded Nick that he could have gone to prison, but Nick acted like it would have been worth it. At this point, Nick is desperate for some peace of mind, but he's never going to get it as long as Matt's on the loose. Now that the judge has thrown out Matt's case, Nick is more determined than ever to wipe his longtime enemy off the map. As far as Nick is concerned, Matt's a threat that will just keep coming back unless they put a permanent end to all this. Since Nick has flat out declared he's going to put Matt in the ground, it's obvious what his plans are. We get why Nick's angry and has no faith in the justice system now that Matt's free, but that doesn't mean he can just kill a guy without consequences. Could Nick wind up getting arrested after causing Matt's demise? If so, Nick could go on trial and potentially head back to prison. Of course, it's also possible that Matt will pull off some trickery like he's done in the past and frame Nick. During one of Matt's previous Y&R stints, he removed his own breathing tube and stuck it in Nick's hand at the hospital. Matt set Nick up to take the fall for killing him, so Nick did some time before his exoneration. Perhaps Matt will do something similar this time around and make sure Nick goes down on his way out. Matt might fake his death again and arrange for Nick to take the fall for it, so stay tuned for any troubling news to come. One way or another, the Young and the Restless spoilers say Nick could find himself in a prison cell if he's not careful. In the world of the Young and the Restless, peace never comes easily to the Newman family. And this time, the storm circling Nick Newman may be the one that drags him straight back behind bars. It all begins with a name Nick never wanted to hear again: Matt Clark. The moment Nick found out that Matt had been released, something inside him snapped. Not just anger, something darker, hotter. Years of buried fury ignited in an instant, and suddenly the air felt too thin to breathe. This wasn't just about old grudges, this was about unfinished business, about fear, about a threat that refuses to stay buried. Because once upon a time, Nick already stood on the edge of becoming a killer. There was a night, a dangerous, irreversible night, when Nick fully intended to end Matt's life. He was ready to cross that line and never look back. But he didn't go through with it. Not because the rage wasn't real, but because the people who love him stepped in. Victor Newman, the ever-calculating patriarch. Sharon Newman, the woman who knows Nick's heart better than anyone. Noah Newman, his son, his conscience. And even Sienna Bacall, standing there as reason when emotions threatened to explode. They talked him down, they stopped him from committing a crime that would have changed everything. Victor, especially, has never regretted that intervention. He recently reminded Nick of what was at stake that night. Prison. A cell. A lifetime of consequences. Nick could have lost everything. But here's the terrifying part. Nick didn't flinch. He didn't back down. He looked his father in the eye and acted like it would have been worth it. That's how deep this runs. Nick isn't chasing revenge for sport, he's chasing peace of mind, something he hasn't had in years. As long as Matt Clark is out there breathing, walking free, Nick feels haunted. The justice system had its chance and failed. When the judge officially threw out Matt's case, it felt like a punch to the gut. The door to legal justice slammed shut and something far more dangerous opened in its place. Now Nick is more determined than ever to wipe his longtime enemy off the map. In his mind, this isn't murder, it's prevention, it's survival. Matt is a threat that keeps resurfacing, like a nightmare that refuses to end. And as far as Nick is concerned, the only way to make sure this story doesn't repeat itself is to end it permanently. And he hasn't been subtle about it. Nick has flat out declared that he's going to put Matt in the ground. The words weren't whispered, they weren't emotional exaggerations, they were cold, direct, intentional. But here's the brutal truth. No matter how justified the anger feels, no matter how broken the justice system may seem, you can't kill a man without consequences. And consequences are circling. So the question now isn't just what will Nick do, it's what will it cost him. Could Nick actually follow through this time? Could the rage finally overpower the restraint his family once fought so hard to protect? And if Matt meets his demise, will Nick be the one blamed? A prison cell is no longer a distant possibility. It's a looming shadow. Nick could be arrested, he could stand trial, he could lose everything all over again. The Newman name might carry power, but even power can't shield you from a murder charge. And then there's the most chilling possibility of all. What if Matt isn't done playing games? Because if history has taught us anything, it's that Matt Clark is never as powerless as he seems. During one of his previous runs in Genoa City, Matt pulled off a twist so twisted it still echoes. In a hospital room fighting for his life, he removed his own breathing tube deliberately and shoved it into Nick's hand. In one calculated move, he framed Nick for killing him. Nick took the fall. He did time. He sat in a prison cell for a crime he didn't commit until the truth finally came out and he was exonerated. That kind of betrayal doesn't fade. It scars. So what's stopping Matt from doing it again? Imagine it. Matt fakes his death one more time, leaves behind just enough evidence to point directly at Nick. Maybe witnesses, maybe staged proof, maybe a final act of revenge designed to destroy Nick's life on his way out. It would be poetic in the cruelest way. Nick, consumed by the belief that he must end Matt's threat, only to find himself trapped in a nightmare Matt orchestrated all along. The rage, the desperation, the declaration that he'd do whatever it takes, all of it could be used against him. And suddenly, that prison cell isn't just a possibility, it's a setup. One way or another, the walls are closing in. Whether Nick crosses the line himself or gets dragged down by another one of Matt's twisted schemes, the outcome could be the same. Steel bars, cold floors, and the devastating realization that vengeance comes at a price. The tension is building, the fuse is lit, and when this storyline finally explodes, it won't just change Nick's life, it could fracture the entire Newman family all over again. Will Nick let his anger decide his fate, or will Matt Clark pull off one final devastating trick? In Genoa City, justice isn't always blind, but it is always unpredictable. And if Nick isn't careful, the next chapter of his story might not unfold in the Newman Ranch, but behind prison walls. The tension doesn't ease, it tightens. Because in The Young and the Restless, when a Newman declares war, the fallout is never contained to just one man. Nick tries to convince himself he's thinking clearly. He tells himself this isn't about rage anymore, it's about protection. About making sure Matt never gets another chance to hurt his family. But every time Nick Newman closes his eyes, he doesn't see strategy. He sees betrayal. He sees hospital monitors. He sees a breathing tube shoved into his own hand. That memory still burns. The last time Matt framed him, Nick felt the walls of a prison cell close in, not just physically but emotionally. The humiliation, the helplessness, the disbelief that someone could manipulate a situation so perfectly, so coldly, that the truth barely mattered. Even after his exoneration, even after walking free, something in Nick never truly escaped. And now Matt is out again, free, untouched, almost daring Nick to make a move. Meanwhile, Victor Newman is watching, calculating. Victor knows his son's temper. He knows the dangerous line Nick is pacing back and forth across. And while Victor has handled enemies in his own ruthless ways, this time feels different. This time, Nick isn't thinking like a businessman. He's thinking like a wounded man cornered. Victor warns him again. Prison is not some abstract threat. It's real, it's permanent, and it would destroy everything Nick has rebuilt. But Nick's answer is chilling in its honesty. If Matt keeps coming back, maybe prison would be worth it. That kind of thinking terrifies Sharon Newman. She sees the shift in Nick, the restlessness, the sleepless nights, the way his jaw tightens when Matt's name is mentioned. Sharon understands anger, she understands trauma, but she also understands consequence. And she knows that once Nick crosses that line, there's no rewriting the story. Even Noah Newman feels it. That growing distance between the father he looks up to and the man consumed by vengeance. Noah doesn't want to see his dad behind bars again. He doesn't want to relive that nightmare. But the more they plead, the more Nick feels alone. Because from his perspective, they don't feel what he feels. They don't wake up wondering when Matt will strike next. They don't carry the same scars, and that's exactly what makes this so dangerous. If Matt is watching, and let's be honest, he probably is, then he knows exactly how to push Nick's buttons. He knows Nick is teetering. He knows one wrong move could send him spiraling. What if Matt orchestrates something subtle this time? Something smaller? A threat here, a planted piece of evidence there, a staged confrontation, just enough to provoke Nick into reacting publicly. Violently, all it would take is one witness, one blurry photo, one moment caught at the wrong angle, and suddenly Nick's past declarations, "I'll put him in the ground," become motive. But there's an even darker possibility. What if Matt doesn't just frame Nick after the fact? What if he manipulates him into walking straight into the trap? Picture it, a private meeting, a location chosen carefully, words exchanged that dig into every open wound. Matt taunts him, reminds him of prison, reminds him of how easily he fooled everyone before. And in a flash of rage, Nick lunges. Maybe Matt falls, maybe he hits his head, maybe he lies still, and maybe, just maybe, that's exactly how Matt planned it. Whether Matt truly dies or simply vanishes again, the optics would be devastating. Nick's fingerprints, Nick's threats, Nick's history, the legal system that just failed him would suddenly have every reason to come down hard. The sounds, an arrest, a trial, cameras flashing as the Newman name is dragged through the mud once more. And if Nick ends up back in a prison cell, the irony would be brutal. He wanted peace, he wanted control. Instead, he'd lose both. The Newman family would fracture under the weight of it. Victor would fight, of course, he always does. Lawyers, investigators, strategy. But even Victor can't rewrite a narrative once it's cemented in the public eye. And Sharon, she would be left holding the emotional pieces, trying to explain to Noah how everything went wrong, trying to reconcile the man she loves with the choices he made. Or worse, the choices he was manipulated into making. Because at the heart of it all is one terrifying truth: Matt Clark thrives on chaos. He doesn't just want revenge, he wants devastation. He wants Nick to feel powerless. And what better way to do that than to send him back to prison, either for a crime he committed in anger or one he never committed at all. As this storyline races toward its climax, the tension isn't just about whether Matt survives. It's about whether Nick does, emotionally, legally, spiritually. Will he hold on to the restraint his family once helped him find, or will he finally decide that ending Matt is worth any cost? In Genoa City, history has a way of repeating itself, but never exactly the same way twice. And if Nick isn't careful, the next time those prison doors slam shut, there may not be an easy exoneration waiting on the other side. And as the storm gathers over Genoa City, the silence before impact feels almost unbearable. In The Young and the Restless, the most dangerous moments aren't always the loudest. Sometimes they unfold in whispers, in glances, in choices made when no one else is in the room. Nick starts moving differently, more secretive, more distant. Nick Newman tells his family he just needs space, time to think. But the truth is far heavier than that. He's not just thinking, he's planning. Every step he takes now feels deliberate, like a man mapping out a final confrontation. And somewhere out there, Matt Clark is waiting, watching, maybe even smiling. Because if Matt knows Nick the way he claims to, then he knows one thing for sure: push him hard enough, long enough, and eventually something will break. Victor senses it first. Victor Newman has built empires on reading people's tells, and his son's silence speaks volumes. Nick isn't venting anymore, he isn't arguing, he isn't threatening in the open. He's gone quiet, and quiet Nick is far more dangerous than angry Nick. Victor tries to intervene again, but this time his words don't land. Nick doesn't want strategy. He doesn't want lawyers. He doesn't want patience. He wants finality. Meanwhile, Sharon feels the emotional distance widening like a crack in glass. Sharon Newman reaches for him, gently, carefully, reminding him of who he is at his core, reminding him that vengeance has never truly healed anyone in their world. But Nick's pain is louder than her reassurance. He insists he's doing this for peace, for safety, for them. But love built on fear is fragile, and Sharon knows that if Nick crosses this line, there may be no coming back, not just legally, but emotionally. Even Noah Newman begins to notice the tension, the clipped answers, the late nights, the haunted look in his father's eyes. Noah has already watched his dad walk through the humiliation of being framed once before. The idea of reliving that nightmare, whether deserved or not, terrifies him. And that fear is justified, because Matt has always been several moves ahead. What if he's already set the stage? What if evidence is quietly being planted? Messages scheduled, cameras positioned, witnesses manipulated. Matt has faked vulnerability before. He has staged his own near death. He has turned hospital equipment into a weaponized lie. He removed his own breathing tube and shoved it into Nick's hand, once framing him so convincingly that prison became reality before the truth caught up. Who's to say he wouldn't escalate this time? Imagine the confrontation when it finally happens. A deserted location, a tense exchange, Matt taunting Nick with chilling calm, bringing up prison, bringing up the breathing tube, reminding him how easily he destroyed his life once already. Nick's fists clench. His breathing turns sharp. The air feels electric. And then a shove, a stumble, a fall. Maybe Matt hits the ground harder than expected. Maybe he doesn't get back up. Or maybe he lies there perfectly still, waiting for sirens, waiting for someone to discover the scene exactly as he intended. And suddenly, Nick is standing over a body, real or staged, with a history of threats hanging over his head like a noose. From there, everything unravels fast. An arrest wouldn't just shake the Newman family, it would explode across Genoa City. Headlines, speculation, whispers about the powerful Newman heir who finally went too far. Victor would mobilize instantly, of course. Lawyers assembling, private investigators digging, but even Victor can't erase motive when it's been declared so openly. Nick has said more than once that he would put Matt in the ground. Those words would echo in a courtroom, and if Matt faked his death again, if this is another elaborate illusion designed purely to destroy Nick, the cruelty would be almost poetic. Nick, believing he's eliminating a threat, only to discover he's been maneuvered into a trap so intricate it mirrors the past, only worse. Because this time, the public would be less forgiving, the system less patient. And what if there is no quick exoneration? What if the evidence is stronger, the narrative tighter? What if Nick finds himself back in a prison cell, staring at the same cold walls, realizing that his greatest enemy didn't need to kill him to win? All Matt had to do was let Nick destroy himself. That's the heartbreaking possibility hovering over the storyline. Nick's anger is understandable, his fear is real. The justice system's failure feels infuriating. But vengeance doesn't operate in a vacuum, it ripples. Through family, through legacy, through the very identity Nick has fought to protect. As the climax approaches, the stakes couldn't be higher. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about who Nick Newman chooses to be when pushed to his absolute limit. Will he become the man his enemy believes he is? Or will he find a way to outsmart a master manipulator without sacrificing his freedom? One way or another, the countdown has begun. And when the dust settles in Genoa City, someone will lose everything. The only question left is, will it be Matt Clark? Or will Nick Newman once again watch prison doors slam shut, realizing too late that the real trap wasn't set in a hospital room, it was set inside his own rage?